Hello, everyone. My name is Katrina, and today is my very first podcast episode recording. I'm very excited to be talking about one topic that I think we've all dealt with, which is self sabotage. But as you know, this episode is going to be about overcoming self sabotage. What I want to be talking about are the three patterns of self sabotage, or three specific types of self sabotage. And I will be talking about actions on how you can overcome them and live your best life. So let's get started. Have you ever felt like you're standing in your own way? Like you've been setting goals, dreaming big, but somehow maybe you or something in your life keeps sabotaging them? It's frustrating, isn't it? You have all these dreams, but then boom, something gets in the way, and that something is often yourself. So today, we're going to be diving into the sneaky ways that we self sabotage, and more importantly, how to overcome these patterns to live more authentically. The three specific types of self sabotage that I'm going to be talking about today are thwarted intention, when your actions conflict with your goals, something left unsaid, when you avoid conversations, and unfulfilled expectations, when the reality doesn't quite meet your hopes and you get stuck. So stay tuned because by the end of this episode, you'll have the practical tools to recognize these patterns and start aligning with your true self. So let's get into it. The first part that I mentioned is thwarted intention. Let me say that again. Thwarted intention. So this happens when your actions don't align with your goals or your values. For example, let's say you want to start a side hustle, but every evening you find yourself scrolling through TikTok and binge watching Netflix instead, or going out with your friends, just keeping yourself busy. Does that sound familiar? I mean, look, you're not lazy, but there's something about taking that first step that feels overwhelming or even scary. Let me give you an example. Like me, hello. I have been trying to put something together for years. I've been wanting to do a podcast or maybe a blog or a vlog or something. And I've been wanting to find different ways to show up and share all of the different ways that I've been doing self development and taking care of myself. But I've just been putting it off because I felt imposter syndrome and I didn't know where to start. In the last few months, I got a life coach and I took a step back and thought, okay, I think this is what I need. I need accountability. I want this to feel somewhat collaborative. Like if you want something bad enough, you need to really look within and just think about how are you sabotaging yourself? How are you thwarting your intentions in a way, even if it's something subtle? I can admit I've been guilty of this, binge watching stuff or reading my sci-fi fantasy romance books or whatever because it felt good, but it didn't give me purpose. And this does. So I'm very excited to be sharing this. So why don't you just consider this? What's one thing that you've been putting off because of a habit or a behavior that you just can't seem to shake? So next, there is something left unsaid. So this one's a bit tricky. When it's fear or discomfort that stops you from expressing your true feelings or needs, for example, maybe there's someone in your life or a colleague or a friend or a loved one, and you've been avoiding a conversation that could clear up a misunderstanding or even bring closure. But why? My friend is like in the back just yelling. But anyway, you need something that brings you closure. Why? Because this conflict or vulnerability feels so uncomfortable. I mean, there have been so many times in my life where something happened with a friend or even someone I was dating, and I didn't have the courage to really say what I was feeling. And as I've gotten older, I realized I need to express myself, even if it takes time. Maybe I need to send it a text message. Maybe I need to call them. No one really knows at the end of the day what you're thinking, if something's bothering you, if you don't say something. Or more occasions when you're like really upset and you really do want to say something, but you don't know why, and that's okay. And it's just, I wouldn't even say in that sense, it's like being aware, first of all, that you realize you're upset about something, but that's the moment where you take a step back. And this is what I do. I journal about it. I just write out like, why am I upset? Why is this bothering me? Is it this person? Is this triggering some kind of behavior that I feel like I've experienced in my life? Once I kind of get a better understanding how this person's bothered me, even if it takes days, weeks, even years. There's no ideal timeline for this, but it's always important to just say the things you say, because I feel like the one regret I've ever had in my life were just not saying the things I was really feeling when it really would have meant something. It would have affected my life a little different if I had said it a little earlier, but it's all good. Another question to consider is, what's one conversation you've been avoiding that could help you let go of something that's no longer serving you? It could be a relationship, some kind of behavior that from another person, like anything. Just consider it. It would really open your mind to really think about what's been bothering you, even if you don't want to admit it to yourself. So finally, we have unfulfilled expectation. And this happens when reality doesn't match your hopes. And instead of adapting, you stay stuck in disappointment. A person expects a promotion at work but doesn't receive it. A friend anticipates an emotional support during a tough time but doesn't get it. It could be also regarding expectations from others, unfulfilled expectations that can result in resentment, mistrust, a sense of loss, often prompting reflection on whether the expectations were realistic or just communicated clearly. A lot of times you behave and act a certain way because you expect others to do the same for you. And I know I've struggled with this. I've done favors for friends who seem like they're going to match my energy and effort that I put out there. And when they don't, I'm just frustrated. And that goes to the second point of just like not communicating your frustration or what you're thinking and your point of view. People think and operate in different ways. Sometimes you don't always understand unless you just ask or talk about it. You don't want unfulfilled expectations to result in resentment or mistrust, which also just makes you think like, were my expectations realistic or communicated clearly to me? And then I just vent to my friends about it. I was like, is this just me? Am I tripping about this? But, just think about how you're communicating and what you're expecting out of a situation. And that usually really helps. But consider this also. What's one expectation you've been holding on to that's been stopping you from really feeling more authentic? So now you might be asking, how can we break free from these patterns? The answer lies in a growth mindset and more self awareness. Self sabotage is often rooted in fear, in fixed thinking, and a growth mindset really helps you reframe challenges as opportunities to learn. Everything that happens to you, bad or good, is something you can learn from and just think. If something good happens, like, I love this. How do I want to feel like this? How can I feel like this again? If something bad happens, like breakups, the way I've been treated by people, I'm like, I am never letting that happen to me again. Let's first tackle thwarted intention with some micro actions. Big dreams can be really overwhelming, like even with this little podcast, but I just got to put something out there. Nothing's ever perfect. If you want to launch a business, don't worry. It's not about making an entire roadmap. It's just like, for me, it's one episode at a time. Just commit to researching one idea today, and some small actions build momentum. I've heard a lot of different advice from people at panels and business conferences. And the one thing that I feel like I learned the most is that it's not about the big milestones in your life. It's the little moments that you have day to day, like your morning coffee or seeing a friend for lunch or something. Those small moments make up a beautiful day. And if you want to progress with something in your business, it's just like, okay, let me promote. I mean, just research like, what can you do today to get yourself one step closer to where you want to go? The next thing would be practice more open and courageous communication for something left unsaid. I mean, it's not always easy to tell people how you're feeling or what you want, but I mean, if you want some sort of change, it's just even the way that you speak. This doesn't mean you need to dive into a big, scary conversation, but just start small. Just start using statements like, I feel this, or I feel concerned about, and I'd like to understand more about this. These phrases open the door to honest dialogue without being confrontational. And it's not about them or what they did. It's just about how you're feeling and how a certain situation unfolded and the outcome of it. So focus on the situation, your feelings, rather than them and they did this and blah, blah, blah. And they're the big bag wolf or whatever. And yeah, you'll find it easier. I mean, I always try to find ways to explain. I'm like, I don't feel good about this happening or that happening. If some big occasion happened, just talk about that rather than you did this and you did that. Redefine the success to overcome unfulfilled expectations. So, no one's perfect. Perfection is not the goal. Progress is. And instead of focusing on where you're not, ask yourself, where have I grown? What have I learned? And every step forward gets you closer to being your most authentic self. So and also just be aware, like, if you know someone is a certain way, don't expect them to change. I think one thing that we all struggle with is, okay, like, I hate that the way this person is and I want to change them. I want this. Like, no one and nothing is really going to change until they decide that they're going to change. So, what you need to realize is just being more aware of yourself and really looking at what others are doing rather than just being so focused on something. Like, it's so easy to just expect, like, okay, I want a raise at work. I'm going to work really hard. And then in 6 months, I better get a raise. If you want a raise, you should organize a meeting with your manager, your boss, and say, hey, what can I do to excel in the next 6 months? Even bring up that you want a raise. Like, what do I need to do to get a raise? How can I show up and be a better worker, whatever you do as an employee? Put those things in place so that you can clearly communicate what your expectation is for your goal and start making those micro actions every day to get there. No one's going to know what you're thinking unless you tell them every year I want a raise at work. I mean, I would certainly love one. But until I really put those things in place and connect with my manager and just say, like, what do you need to see in me to get to this goal that we have agreed upon to get a raise? You know, you need to be really clear and communicate that effectively. So, that bringing me to my last point. I'd love to take a moment to reflect, and I'd love to hear from you. Or actually, not that I wouldn't want to hear from you, but I'd love for you to reflect upon what's one area in your life that you feel like you've been self-sabotaging without even realizing it? And well, I have a few questions for you to really think about. The second, what's one small action you can take to really align with yourself and really show up more authentically? The third one is, what's one belief about yourself you're ready to challenge and change? I would honestly say, even for me, some of these, well, all of them I've been really working with for a while, but I didn't even think it was possible. But now I'm waking up at like 5:30 and doing my gratitude journaling, which I highly recommend. Get a gratitude journal before you go to bed and when you wake up, and it will change your life. I am doing meditations every morning. I go for a walk, and like I feel like a whole new person. And I was like, I'm not a morning person. I'm not this. But you know what? I got a new job, and it's on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast, and it's kind of forced me to get to that point. But I want to feel good about myself. I want to challenge this belief, and I want to be better. So now I've put these things into place, and I feel better about myself than I have in a very long time. So anyway, think about that. What's one belief about yourself you're ready to challenge and change? And I'm going to leave you with some action items too, apart from like the questions that you want to reflect. But essentially, before we wrap up, here are 3 simple actions you could take this week to start manifesting your best self. I'd like you to spend 5 minutes journaling about one area of self sabotage and how it shows up in your life. And then I'd love you to act. So pick one small action to tackle this week. It could be blocking 30 minutes to work on a goal, having an honest conversation with someone, or setting 3 realistic steps to move closer to something that you really desire or dream about. What can you do today that will get you closer to tomorrow? And affirm, I think affirmations are also super powerful. I feel like a completely different person now that I'm actually like saying them and writing them down. And even if I sound like crazy and I'm like, I am magnetic, I have a magnetic aura, or whatever thing I'm telling myself. One mantra I think that I'd love to share with you is, I'm worthy of my dreams and I'm taking small steps every day to make them a reality. And that's what I feel like I'm doing today. So I'm happy to share that. And remember, the key is to start small. Small steps lead to big changes. And in the end, self sabotage does not have to hold you back from your dreams and living your most authentic life. By bringing awareness to these patterns and embracing a growth mindset, you can start manifesting anything you want into your life. And anything you've always wanted. It's just one step at a time. It's just changing that vibration, that frequency that you're showing up as every day. And if this episode resonated with you, I would love if you would share it with a friend who might need to hear it, and let me know what's one thing you're doing differently after listening to this episode. I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, your dreams are always within reach, just one step and each small step adds up. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep growing, and keep shining. Bye.